Good morning. Mesilat Yesharim Perek 22, Part 2. B'Shem Hashem Naseh v'Natzliach. This shiur is dedicated to the safe return of our hostages and our chayalim, and refuah shlema to our chayalim and hostages and the displaced families, and to Avraham ben Chana, Zechariah Dov Pearl Ben Pearl Shira, and Le'ilui Nishmat, all those were murdered on October 7 and since. And also Le'ilui Nishmat Nisim Ben Yamna, Gracia Bat Zahra, Leticia Bat Zahra, and Yoshua Ben Zahra. May their nishamot have an aliyah. To all singles, this shiur is also dedicated to all singles. May Hashem bring them soon their true zivug. שיזכו לבנות בית נאמן בישראל, בקדושה ובטהרה. Thank you to all my listeners for tuning in and taking the time to listen to the shiurim. May Hashem bless you with bracha and hatzlacha in all that you do, and may to grow stronger in Torah. Thank you, Hashem, for all your chasadim and your nisim that you have done with us and for us. Without you, Hashem, and your protection and guidance, we just can't make it. So to recap, part 1 of chapter 22, we were learning about anava, to be humble, humbleness. No matter how perfect we are, there is no room for ga'ava, for haughtiness, for feeling above everyone else. There will always be someone who is better than us. And there will always be someone who has been blessed with great intelligence. So, in fact, such a person, or greater wealth, right? So such a person has a responsibility to share and teach the vast knowledge that he has been able to acquire, right? We're talking about someone who is more smarter than us. And now we are going to continue. Ramchal applies this concept of responsibility to others in all areas. If one is wealthy, he should be happy with his lot that Hashem has given him and blessed him with wealth. And he should recognize that he is responsible to help those who do not have wealth, those who are less fortunate, those who are poor. If one is physically strong, he must recognize that he is responsible to help the weak and to save the persecuted. And the Ramchal says, to what can this be compared to? To the servants of a house. Each is given a certain task. It is proper for each one to stick to his task and stay in his area that he has been given, that has been assigned to him. And so together they'll be able to complete all the chores of the house and supply all its needs. Since each servant is only executing his appointed task, there truly is no place for ga'ava, for haughtiness. So too must each person view his own talents or circumstances as an indication of the role that he has to play and the responsibility that he has been chosen to perform in this world. So by using his talents, and his abilities. He's merely performing Hashem's plan. Hashem has a plan for each and every one. This is a process, says the Ramchal, of examination and reflection, thinking, that is appropriate for anyone whose thinking is straight and not distorted. Distorted means that there is no hardiness in our thought process. When this becomes clear to him, one needs to digest and allow time to get used to all these ideas, right? That there's no reason to have ga'ava, to feel better than others, because there's always someone who is better than us, richer than us, smarter than us, whatever it is, more talented than us. And then, now that we know the ideas, then we have to put them into practice. So that's what the Ramchal is presenting to us. Only then such a person can be called a anav. So that really that demands a lot of work. That means one who is humble in his heart, in his spirit, and in his inner thoughts. And this is the anava of David HaMelech. Now, I need to explain what happened with David HaMelech. It's a little long, but it is worth it for us to understand exactly what the Ramchal is trying to teach us, and that we're learning from David HaMelech how to become an anav. David HaMelech, who was the king. He wasn't just an ordinary person. He was actually the king. The nations of the world feared David HaMelech. He was really a king, not only for Bnei Israel, but he was really a king, really that was able to capture many places. And because the other nations feared David HaMelech, that gave him more power. So he was really very powerful. So there definitely was room there to feel haughtiness, to feel ga'ava. But as we shall see, it was exactly the opposite. So when and what happened with David HaMelech? So David, as we know, had fought many wars. So David and his army were able to capture Yevus. Yevus is another name for Yerushalayim. And as soon as this was over, David decided to bring the Aron of Hashem to Yerushalayim. The Aron was not with David. The Aron was in Kiryat Ya'arim, in the house of Avinadav. And his children would take care of the Aron. And they would clean the room where it was and make sure that people would not walk into it or anything like that. And so, and that was really the entire purpose for fighting the war in Yerushalayim for David, so that he would bring the Aron into Yerushalayim, into the tent that David had prepared, a special tent. He knew exactly the place where it was supposed to be. And later on, the Aron would be put into the Bet HaMikdash. Because David at that time thought that he would be building the Bet HaMikdash. So David gathered. He gathered the best young men, 30,000 of them, 30 young men from all over Eretz Yisrael. He had many followers. He gathered the Talmidei Chachamim from all over Eretz Yisrael, and these were the best men, according to some Chachamim, plus another 60,000 men and zekenim, also elders. So altogether, David had with him 90,000 men, all talmidei chachamim and zekenim. David also had soldiers, had an army with him, just in case the Plishtim would attack David. As we know, Plishtim would constantly come back again and again. No matter how many times David won the war against them, the Plishtim would come back again and again, and they would attack Bnei Israel. There were actually two Aronot. There was the first Aron, where the Shivrei Luchot, the broken tablets, were stored in. And the second Aron was the Aron where the Luchot, the second set of Luchot, were stored in. So when Ben Israel were in the desert, it was the job of Shevet Levi, specifically the Kohanim, right, that are taken from Shevet Levi, to carry the Aron. They would carry the Aron on their shoulders. Only the Kohanim were allowed to touch it. Touch it only to carry it, right? It had long staves, like sticks, right? To carry, they wouldn't actually touch the Aron. And then they would put those poles, those sticks, those staves, those poles, they would put them on their shoulders. There was a rotation system in the desert for carrying the kelim, the menorah, the shulchan, the mizbeach. So each family of Kohanim, they had a wagon that was specifically for these kelim, and they all had a rotation where they would take turns carrying the different kelim and also carrying the Aron. But the Aron was always carried not on a wagon, but on their shoulders. So this way, everyone was happy because of the rotation. There was no jealousy and no problem. Then David comes along, and David says, as a king, I will make a wagon. It is my honor to make a wagon to bring back the Aron. And he wanted to put the Aron on the wagon. But that was a mistake, a big mistake. The Aron was supposed to be carried on the shoulders, right? As we just said. Never in a wagon. And there was always a distance of 2,000 amot, which is about 1,000 feet, between the Kohanim carrying the Aron and the Shevatim and the tribes. So David made a mistake here. So obviously right away we have a question. Why did Hashem allow David to make such a mistake? We know that a person who wants to make mitzvot is protected. Abba letaher metaharim oto. One who wants to do mitzvot, so he's helped and protected so that he can do the mitzvot. So what happened here? David was not protected here. And specifically that we're going to see later on, we know that the whole event really did not end well at this time, as we shall see later on. So what happened? David said in Tehillim, in Perek Kufyutet, Zemirot hayu li chukecha. Hashem, your laws, for me, they're like a song. David was the Rosh Sanhedrin. He was the leader of the highest court. He was a Talmid Chacham. for such a person to express himself about the laws and the mitzvot, it wasn't proper. It was not a respectful way to express himself about the mitzvot. Obviously, we're talking about David. We're not talking about us. Hashem said, I will show you, David, that you will fail on something so elementary, so basic, that even Tinokot Shel Bet Rabban, young children, they know the rule, they know the law. So that's why Hashem did not protect David. Because Hashem is very strict with the tzaddikim. So, according to his thinking, why did David make this mistake? So, there are many, many reasons. I'm not going to bring all of them. I'm only going to bring maybe 3. The first one is that David thought that since he is moving the Aron from a temporary place to another temporary place, he is allowed to put it on the wagon. Reason number 2, inside the Aron were the Shivrei Ruchot, the broken tablets. Number 3, that the command to carry the Aron on the shoulders was only in the desert, for the time of the desert. So, according to his thinking, it's okay. So now, the sons of Avinadav, Achio and Uzzah, they go together with the Aron to walk the Aron to Yerushalayim. Achio, he was in the front leading the cows, and Uzzah was right behind the wagon, just in case something would happen. And it was a huge parade. And they started walking. David and all the crowd, they were so happy. There was music, there was violins, there was drums, trumpets, shofarot, dancing. And people saw David dancing as a regular person. He did not put on any airs. As a king, one could feel the happiness in the air. There was so much happiness. And people were just so happy. They were focused on David, seeing him dancing so much. And David said to himself, I want people to focus on me and not at the Aron, because people are not really allowed to look at the Aron. And so, not even the Kohanim. And so, there was so much happiness. Why people could not look at the Aron, just like we are not allowed to look at the Shekhinah. When Hashem revealed himself to Moshe in the burning bush, Moshe realized this was no regular fire. Moshe realized this was the Shekhinah. He turned away and he covered his face, because he didn't want to look at the Shekhinah. So here also, here the Kohanim were not allowed to look at the Aron. The people were not allowed. So David said, I'm going to dance so that I'll be the focus of the people, and people are not going to look at the Aron. And this was really a most beautiful, beautiful, happy parade. But what happened? At one point, it looked like the wagon with the Aron was going to tip over. Uzzah quickly put his hand out. He put his hand out to steady the Aron, so the Aron should not fall. Unfortunately, and right at that moment, as Uzzah touched the Aron, he died on the spot. Everyone stopped, panicked, and they got very scared. People were scared of the Aron. Everyone understood that the Aron was holy, kadosh, and therefore one must behave and be careful about the Aron. David became white, pale, and was very, very scared. He was feeling so sad that this simcha turned into evel, into mourning. He felt that it was all his fault. He felt responsible because now it came back to him. He did not have the Kohanim carry the Aron on their shoulders. Then David named this place Peretz Uzzah. Peretz means burst. Uzzah is the name of the person who died because the punishment burst on him. Like he was punished right away. And David named this place Peretz Uzzah as a reminder to what happened in this place. David was scared. He feared. There's a fear, a very deep fear. What is his punishment going to be? He's responsible for doing the wrong thing. David did not want to take the Aaron to his place. He feared that maybe in his palace, maybe not enough kavod is going to be given to the Aaron. But really, David had nothing to worry about his own place. But there was still a very long way to Yerushalayim. So what were they going to do? So he reasoned. David reasoned that Uzzah was a great tzaddik. Uzzah was not an ordinary person. And this is the punishment that he received. So what's going to be put to David? With David? What punishment is David going to get? So David decided to take the Aaron to the house of Oved Hagiti, who was really around the corner from where they were. He was a Levi. The Aaron was then left in the house of Oved for 3 months. Hashem blessed the Oved, blessed his household, where the Aaron was kept, and where great kavod was given to the Aaron. He was blessed with a large family. Every birth was 6 children at once. And he was blessed with Hatzlacha and with Parnasah. Everyone spoke about it. Wow! It was the talk of the town. And people were happy to hear that good things happened because of the Aaron. Because the last time, things were not so happy that happened with the Aaron. And so Vayugat le David. And David was told. He was told about the blessing that came to the house to Oved Hagiti. Chachamim explained to us there were 2 things that people that were in the Bet HaMikdash that people were scared of: the Ketoret and the Aaron. With the Ketoret, Aaron HaKohen had taken it and walked around with it. The Ketoret is the incense, and that's what saved and stopped the plague, the Magefa. At the time of Parashat Korach, and at the time also of when people were, that was Parashat Korach, when they were talking, people were saying that Aaron should not be the Kohen, and the Aaron. People were afraid of the Aaron because of what happened to the Plishtim. The Plishtim had stolen the Aaron, and he brought a lot of trouble on them, to the point when at the end they just let it go. They put it on a wagon and let it go by itself, and he came by itself, pulled by the cows. He came by itself to Kiryat Yearim. And now with what happened to Uzzah, people were really scared of the Aaron. So now people were told, and David is told, that Hashem blessed the house of Oved and his household. And here Chachamim explained that if people died, it's not because of the Ketoret or because of the Aaron. People died because of their sins, not because of the Aaron or the Ketoret. And so for the second time, David again gathered another 90,000 people, and again Talmidei Chachamim and Zekenim, and this time he had more Leviim and more Kohanim, and he told the Leviim, you are going to play music just like you do in the Mishkan, in the Bet HaMikdash. And now David felt that now it was the right time to bring the Aaron to Yerushalayim. And David told the Kohanim, prepare yourself for the task. You will carry the Aaron to Yerushalayim. The Leviim were told to play music with all the instruments, and shofarot, and trumpets, and violin, and drums, you name it, they're there. And because at the time of the Bet HaMikdash, they will also be playing music when the Kohanim would be offering korbanot. And the Pasuk tells us that after every 6 steps, the Kohanim offered korbanot, sacrifices, to increase the simcha. And after a set of 6 steps, which is 36 steps, they would offer even more korbanot, bulls and rams, and they would thank Hashem that all was good and no misfortune happened. ודוד מחקר בכל עוז. The Pasuk tells us that David was dancing with all his might, all his strength. He was wearing a new linen tunic. David did not want to wear his crown on his royal clothing. He just wanted to wear something plain. It was a linen tunic that he was wearing because he felt, I want to show to Hashem I'm an ordinary person in front of Hashem. And so he danced with the people. The simcha increased so much, they felt a spiritual elevation. They really felt this was a very special occasion. Hamavdil, it's like when we, I shouldn't say Hamavdil, sorry, but like when we bring a Sefer Torah to a shul, so there's a whole parade, there's music, there's dancing, so it's the same thing. So can you imagine times 1,000 times more, or 1,000,000 times more about what the simcha was. And so this was really what David said, Ivdu et Hashem besimcha. They really were serving Hashem out of joy, out of happiness, and they actually felt that joy and happiness. As the parade was coming to Yerushalayim, and Michal, the daughter of Shaul, who was married to David, she was looking out the window, and she saw David, her husband, dancing. And the Pasuk says, Vativez beliba. She felt that David was embarrassing himself in front of his people, that he was shaming himself in front of his people. That was according to her thinking. So she really felt like, he's not really a king. This is not the behavior of a king. And David looked up and he saw her, and he saw her look, that she did not approve of his dancing. But David continued, just as before. He was doing a mitzvah, and there's nothing shameful about performing a mitzvah. The Aaron was brought to its place in the tent. More sacrifices were offered. David blessed the people and gave them gifts. Only then did David go home. Michal came out to greet him. She couldn't even wait for him to come inside. But she went out to him and she told him off. How respected you were today. Ma nechbad hayom. But she was really being sarcastic. She was mocking him. You behaved like an ordinary man among ordinary people. Today you did what you were not supposed to do. My father's house was more noble than yours. They were all more honorable than you. And so David answered, Hashem has chosen me to be the king over Bnei Israel, and he has chosen me over your father's house. Because in your father's house, their personal kavod, the self-respect, was more important than kavod shamayim, than the kavod of Hashem. What is David talking about? We know that Shaul was depressed, and Doeg Edomi, who was one of his advisors, did not like David, and he would fill up Shaul's mind with all kind of lies about David, just to make Shaul even more angry at David. So Shaul spent a lot of time trying to catch David and to kill him, because he believed what Doeg said, Doeg Edomi. And so once when Shaul was trying to capture David, Shaul said, Ki kol hayamim asher ben Yishai chai al adama. Sorry, Shaul said, Lo tikon ata umamlachtecha. That's what was told to Shaul, that as long as David is alive, your kingship is not going to be lasting. And so David said, Shaul said, he knew that Hashem had chosen David to be the next king. Yet, Shaul said, decided he wanted to kill David to save his self-respect, his kavod atzmi. He's going to be the king after me? No way. Shaul said, he's not going to be, even though Hashem decided that David would be the king after Shaul. But David had said all the time, at the time, David knew what was going on, and David just went along. Then David became the king. And one time, Avshalom, his son, the son of David, rebelled against his father. And he wanted to kill David. And again, Doeg Edomi was there to fill up the mind of Avshalom. And David had been forewarned by the Navi, Natan HaNavi, who told him, your son is going to rebel against you. And so when David had to run away from Avshalom, so that Avshalom should not kill him, David said, Avshalom will do to me whatever is good in his eyes. So we look at the difference as at the reaction of Shaul, who said that he wanted to kill David so that David should not be the next king, and the reaction of David, that he had to run away from his son. What did David say? My son will do whatever is good in his eyes. So we see the difference between Shaul and David. And so David said so to Michal, and he added, because Hashem blessed me with malchut, with kingship, I have to be even more humble and have a bigger obligation to show more kavod to Hashem than anyone else. And this is what the Ramchal was referring to. How humble we have to be. That even David HaMelech felt that he had, in front of Hashem, he had to be a nothing. Absolutely nothing. And David said, because Michal said, you are dancing in front of ordinary people. And David said, I wish I would have a part of Olam Haba, of Gan Eden, with these so-called ordinary people, as you call them. And the very next pasuk, the pasuk tells us about the punishment of Michal, that Michal had been wrong, that she died at childbirth. So this is probably the last shiur before Pesach. Chachamim teach us that a person who is full of himself can get tzaraat, which is connected to this week's parasha, Tazria, which is tzaraat is leprosy, for lack of better word. And Pesach is a holiday that teaches us to be humble. Chachamim explain that the matzah is thin, and chametz, the bread, is thick, right? So the matzah represents one who is humble, and bread represents one who is arrogant. So when we eat matzah, we should learn to be humble. So may Hashem help us learn to be truly humble, so we may be able to serve Him as we should. Chag Pesach Kasher v'Sameach. May Hashem bring back the hostages and soldiers safely home.